Y'all ready? Sign us up. Okay, we'll call a meeting to order. It's our March the 12th, 2026 meeting of the Wastewater Advisory Committee. Have a roll call, please.
Alan Gill,
Yep.
Sam Coates, Len Kazicki-Wegging, John Boutwell,
Here.
Keith Davis,
Here.
Denny Hastings. Got a quorum present.
Okay, I'm sure you've read the agenda, and is there any additions or corrections we need to make to the agenda? If not, I'm looking for a motion on the agenda.
Motion approved.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, then I hope you've read the minutes from our February the 12th meeting. Any additions or corrections to these minutes? If not, I'm looking for a motion on that.
Motion to approve minutes.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now we're going to go right on into our presentation. I met you, but I forgot your name. But I'm just going to turn it over to you, and you let your do your presentation. And after that, we got Eddie Price is going to talk to us, and appreciate you coming and trying to get us a little information.
Thank you. My name is Mark Lee. I'll give you each a business card. Steve Harrison and I acquired the business from Logan, and in 1997, the Rutherford County Planning Commission saw that our property in Rutherford County was being swallowed up by large lots that for septic systems, and they said, hey, can you come up with a way to use the soils, the good soils, and not so much spread out the lots, and maybe we can get more lots per acre. And so Jamie Reed and I got with somebody else, and we worked on what we call the step system, and we didn't invent it. We were sort of on the front end of the growth of that system, and there wasn't much to go on then. We came up with ways of making it work, and the first one was in the late 90s that was constructed. It's still there today. We use a little bit different technology. We've learned a lot over the years, and at one point we worked with the state of Tennessee, TDEC, and rewrote the regulations for these systems. And then sometime later, Jamie worked with TDEC as we progress and find out better ways of doing things. We changed the regulations or the guidelines with TDEC to make these better. I'll be going over the components of what we call a step system, and I'll tell you what they do. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask as we go. You don't have to wait to the end. That way we can keep them in the context of the points that are being made. There we go. So there are basically 4 system components. And the first 2 are very brief. They're very simple. This whole system is very simple. So the first is the point of use pre-treatment. Then there's a collection system. And then there's the treatment, which is the biggest part of it. And the next to the largest is the effluent dispersal, which actually continues to work on the treated effluent. Just a quick system overview. There's the point of use at the top, and I've sort of color code these, and you'll see that it's orange for those that are Tennessee fans. That's the point of use is where there's a house or a business, and there's usually some pre-treatment that goes on there in the form of a septic tank or a grease trap, maybe a grease trap added to that if it's a business that uses grease in their business. And then there's the collection lines, which are usually a force main, but they can be a gravity line. And then there's the treatment, which is a recirculating media plant. And then the effluent dispersal, which is where the effluent goes down into the ground by way of drip tubes. When we are contracted to design a site using this approach, we began by working backwards to optimize both the available soils and the potential lot yield. This is a residential subdivision, as you can see. It's very preliminary at this point. The usable soils are the limiting factor. And using the NRCS Web Soil Survey, we evaluate the suitable soils that may be located on the property and quantify the usable area. We then balance the achievable lot yield with the required soils areas and overall treatment footprint. This process often involves some trial and error. The projected lot yield ultimately determines whether or not the development is economically feasible. When we are considering property acquisition and infrastructure cost, essentially it's a go, no go. And sometimes the preliminary soils are taken a step further by getting the soil scientists out on the property if it's questionable with the soils map. Those soils maps were developed for farming practices. And sometimes we want to get a little bit more assurance, or the developer requests a little bit more assurance and just does a preliminary walk through and checking soils and make sure that there's the NRCS soils maps are somewhere close. If the project is determined to be a go, a registered soil scientist performs a detailed soil mapping in accordance with TDEC's requirements. That mapping forms the basis of our drip dispersal system design. At each step in this evaluation, we're homing in on the exact number of lots that can be treated. We don't know that number until we're finished. For this particular site, there was a rocky area on the right side of the property, so that made sense to put the houses over there. And the good soils were on the left side, that area that's outlined in red. And then the area that's highlighted in green is the treatment area. And both the drip soils and the treatment area are fenced. They're not required to be, but you do that so you don't have four-wheelers just taking off going out through the treatment area and messing up your drip field. With ultraviolet disinfection, you're not required to have it fenced, but that's our preference, to fence it, just for insurance purposes. So at the point of use, for residential subdivision, the design flow is 300 gallons per day per lot. The pretreatment is a septic tank with a pump. If it's a commercial user, or industrial, or institutional rather, the design flow will have to be determined by the type of use that is proposed. And the pretreatment for commercial and institutional, it would be a septic tank and a grease trap. And the septic tank has a pump in it, whether it's in the residential or the commercial areas. And if there's no pretreatment at the point of use, then you would have to use a gravity sewer to your treatment area, and that's a lot more expensive. A force main's a lot less expensive. So with a septic tank, then we're pumping the clarified wastewater into the collection system and on to the treatment area. I got a slide out of order, and we'll come to it in just a minute with the wrong color, but I'm going to cover it right now anyway, and that is the pre-treatment. Let's see, I might be able to fast forward through there. There we go. So here's a septic tank, and in the middle of it, or on the right side, is a wall, it's a baffle wall. And so the effluent comes in from the left and goes to the right, and there is a oh, you're just getting where you can see? Okay. The flow travels from the right through the step tank on out to the treatment area. A submersible pump is all you need to get the effluent from the point of use to the treatment area. A residential control panel is up there on the left with that green oval around it. And electricity and alarm are hooked to that, and it will sound if the panel loses electricity. And it's a watertight septic tank, which is very important. We don't need inflow from any storm drainage or anything like that to increase the amount of effluent that we're treating. So we want to make sure these are watertight, and there are a lot of companies that make those, so that's not an issue. We call them step systems because of the septic tank, and it's got an effluent pump in there, therefore step. I need to go back the other way now. Are there any questions about the point of use?
From a management perspective on those septic tanks, I know that you had mentioned there was an alarm that would go off if it lost power, which means it would not be pumping. Is there technology now available that has some Bluetooth technology that those can be monitored even from an off-site situation?
Yeah, that's exactly what happens. Now, the utility company doesn't pay for the electricity, the user does.
Right.
And so that's also connected to let the utility company know when there's a problem, yes. Any other questions?
No aeration systems inside those tanks?
No, sir. They're just a simple septic tank with a wall in it and a pump. So the solids stay in the tank, and the tank is owned by the utility company, and there's an easement around the tank for maintenance. If it were to have problems, you get in and service that.
Those solids will eventually, those digesters will have to be pumped.
Yes.
Eventually.
And if users are kind to their system, it could be a long time. I lived in a house when I first moved to Murfreesboro, and I lived there 10 years, and I never had to have the tank pumped. So, it's how kind you are to it determines how long. Yes.
There's no grinder or anything involved like.
No, sir.
Some cities have grinders to them.
No, you don't want a grinder pump in a septic tank. No, sir.
Because I know, I talked to for the city, what's his name? John, and he recommended having them where they couldn't rent houses in these developments because, that the renters don't take a good care, like you're saying. They use a lot more of the wipes, and that's
Yes.
wipes are their major problem.
Yes, a lot of wipes are not very good with grinder pumps. In a septic tank, it should stay on the left side of the wall and not come through. But if it were to clog your pipe that allows it to go from one side to the other, then you have an issue, and it will take more maintenance if people are misusing it like that. And there's literature provided to homeowners so they know what they can and can't do with their septic system, septic pump.
I'm Matt Nix. I'm with Edge Wastewater, in the case where we have a community that is going to be a rental community, you know, Mark specifically called out the design criteria for 300 gallons a day of flow as the basis for which you're going to design the system. If we're doing a rental community, we're going to up that. We're going to look at it. We're going to say, okay, because of the very issue that you're talking about, we're going to increase that. We're going to might even increase the size of the concrete vault into which everything flows because of, you know, what I'm going to refer to as sometimes abuse of the system. That way we anticipate what's going on.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt. All right, on to the collection system. These are pressurized, small diameter PVC pipes, 2 to 6 inches in diameter, and it depends on the hydraulic grade line or the pressure in the system. And a 2 to 3 inch line can serve 60 lots. A 3 to 4 inch line, a couple of hundred lots. Anything over that would take a 4 to 6 inch line. And we actually run a hydraulic model to determine those pipe sizes, to properly size them. You don't want them oversized and you don't want them undersized. And that is it on a collection system. They're very simple, not much to them. Any questions on a collection system? Okay, now comes the meat of it, and that is the treatment plant design, the treatment plant. And we're going to talk about the design parameters. As we mentioned earlier, the design flow is 300 gallons per day per house, and we have a recirculation rate that's typically 4 or 4 to 5 times through the system. One thing that you don't want to do is run out of effluent and let your bugs die, so you keep some in there at all times to keep your bugs alive. We are required to provide storage in case of an outage. We have to provide 1 day worth of storage. Yes, sir. Right. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And we're gonna talk a little bit about the treatment train. And
Would you not have generator backup on this treatment facility?
no, sir. In this day and time, we don't see as many outages as we did 20 years ago because of backfeed to. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But you know what? In that situation, it would have been in the septic tanks for days and not all at the treatment plant. So
What happens in 10 days on that septic on that septic tank side?
well, it's on the homeowner. I don't know. Do you have any comments on that, Matt?
Well, the concrete vaults are 1,800 gallon vaults. We say they're 1,500 gallons, but they're actually 1,800 gallons because you got some additional head on top of it. So right there, you've got 5 to 6 days worth of storage, and then the piping system itself has storage capacity, and then the treatment facility, we have to have, if we're doing, and I'm arbitrarily picking a number, we're doing 30,000 gallons of flow a day, we have to have 30,000 gallons worth of storage at the treatment facility. So you got 5, 6 days at the tank, you have some capacity inside the pipe, and then you've got a day at the treatment system itself. So you have 8 to 9 days worth of storage if everything were to just go south completely and
That
not.
tank is already gonna be
It's going to have some. It's going to have some in there. It is going to have some in
So
there.
you're
It's
not
flow
gonna
out.
have more than 300 to 400 gallon
Um,
over.
It sort of depends. Some of it will depend. You could be correct. Some of it will depend on the usage of who lives there. You have a house that has a bunch of kids in it, you probably are very correct. If you have a house like I live in, you're gonna have a lot of capacity left in that.
Isn't there some design for a dumping area after, in some systems?
All right, so there are communities out there, Williamson County, that requires a storage pond for this very issue. They require 40-day capacity of storage. And if you had something like that, you could dump it out into the pond, and then you'd have to reclaim it to go back through there. I've been doing this for a number of years now, close to 10 years. Built a bunch of systems out in Williamson County. We have never, ever had to utilize, even during a month ago, did not have to utilize any of the storage facilities. If it got to a critical point, to this gentleman's idea, if it got to the point, we could put a generator on there, absolutely.
But that's not gonna bring the, water from the homeowners.
No, it's not.
I mean,
But it
you,
would,
you could pump what was
correct.
possibly gravity flowing on
Yes, sir.
down to
Mhm.
there, but if it was a pumps, you know, if they had to pump it,
Right.
then that homeowners is gonna fill up.
And it's gonna push some of it out.
It's gonna go somewhere.
Right. It's gonna push some of it out the pipe. Absolutely. I agree.
All right, so I'm going to run you through the treatment train of the treatment facility. So that, I guess, my pointer's not going to work with me on the screen. So, top left, from the collection system, the effluent comes in there. It goes through the primary storage tank and the equalization tank. And then it goes into the recirculating media unit, which is a BioClear. There's 2 of those there. And they each can handle a certain amount of wastewater. So multiple units could be required based on the volume of the wastewater. And from there, it goes to the final disposal tank. And if needed, it could go to keep effluent in the system. It could go to the recirc tank and back up into the primary storage tank and through the system. If it goes to when it goes to the final disposal tank, that arrow to the left should actually be out of the UV building. So I've got a little error made there, I see. But from the final disposal tank, it goes into the control building, and in the control building is ultraviolet light and some disc filters to filter the system before it goes to the drip dispersal field to trap any small particles that may have gotten through, and then onto the drip field. Periodically, you have to backflush the disc filters, the Arco filters, and in that case, that's where the arrow that's going to the left, the filter flush return, it would go back up to the recirc tank and then back through to the treatment system. When it goes to the drip field, periodically you have to do a flush of those, and so you have to run your pumps faster and through the drip field, and it then will return back to the recirc tank and then circle back through the treatment facility. And so just a little closer look of the recirculating media components. I put a legend on there. You can see the primary tank where it comes in on the left, and there's an equalization tank, and then there are the 2 BioClear units, and then there's a recycle line where it goes, the effluent goes out to the recirc tank or to the final disposal tank. This is a couple of pictures of some BioClear units, and at the back of the one on the right, you can see some burgundy colored tanks. Those are Xerxes tanks, but those are used for storage, and sometimes they are concrete tanks. The BioClear wastewater treatment technology is designed for a surface life, typically around 50 years for the main structure. The system is built using durable materials like fiberglass and PVC. The BioClear units our systems are considered advanced, high-performance systems, and they're suitable for difficult sites or high-strength waste. BioClear is often marketed as having about a lower long-term operation and maintenance cost due to its design. And each BioClear unit you use about 750 kilowatt hours per month. And what you see there are two of them, and then the equalization uses about 250 kilowatt hours per month. Therefore, each train will use about 1,750 kilowatt hours per month. If you assumed 10 cents per kilowatt hour, that's about $175 per train per month. Typically, BioClear uses about a third of the energy of conventional systems that uses blowers similar to activated sludge units. There are several BioClear systems in Tennessee. We at Site Engineering Consultants we've designed several in Murfreesboro, Thompson Station there are some, Fairview there are some, and Memphis and East Tennessee. They're used all over. I couldn't find an exhaustive list of them, but they're used quite a bit in Tennessee. I mentioned about the final disposal tank, and it's a concrete tank. Doesn't have to be, but that's our preference. There are various sizes depending on the flow that you're going to have. And then after, sorry about that. After the final disposal tank, it goes to the control building from there. And control building is usually just a concrete block masonry structure, very simple. And you see there's, on the bottom right, you can see those two little things sticking up on each section. That there are the ARCO filters, and then they each have a UV light. Those are Sanitron UV lights. And it's a very simple building, not much to it. And there's the inside of one of those units. Those two black, you can see one black bubble shaped thing at the top. That's an ARCO filter, and there's one behind it. And below it, the long skinny things horizontal are Sanitron ultraviolet lights, and there's one for each of those ARCO filters. And you notice there's not even pumps in there. It's pumped from the final disposal tank through here and on out to the drip field. Yes.
Are there different sizes of them? That one right there handle 100 houses?
Yes, sir. There's a lot of different configurations, and you size them based on the flow. Yes, thank you. Thank you for the question. Any other questions? You can see this treatment area. This is a subdivision that's going in, and you can see the work on it going on behind it. But it's a very simple system. Not a lot of different components. Anybody have any questions on it?
What is the longevity of the UV lights?
I'll let Matt talk about the UV light, because he's one that handles the maintenance.
What are you doing to that?
I guess I'm breathing too hard on it.
The UV lights generally have a 3-year lifespan to them. We have had some that will get electrical surge, and we'll have to go replace them. But generally, it's about a 3-year lifespan.
Any other questions on the treatment?
Any particular configurations you have for the drip field, or any information about the drip field you could share with us?
Yes, sir. I'll go into that right now. We call it land application or drip dispersal. The design flow, again, is 300 gallons per day per residence. The land application rate, and we'll discuss that in a minute. The soils mapping, we are required to do a high-intensity soils map with a 100-foot grid. In Williamson County, they require us to do a 50-foot grid. The usable soils are greater than or equal to 20 inches to the restrictive layer. We're required to do 2 test pits per soil type, and there's not every soil is good. You can't just put this in any soil. You have to have a soil that is that will take this water. Now, when we first started, TDEC looked at it as effluent from septic tanks, and that's not at all what it is. It's clean water. It's been purified, and so, like rainwater going through it, it doesn't clog up the soils. If you have a septic system, the waste is not really treated. It's very limited treatment, but it would overuse would clog the soils up. So we don't have that issue here. In fact, I wish I had a bottle of it. Matt ought to bring that with him when he comes to things like this. But if you took the bottle, if you took the effluent from one of these treatment facilities, first out of the tap, and put them in a bottle, unlabeled, and told you got to drink one of them, you would probably pick the one from the step treatment because it's sparkling, it's been polished, it looks good. So, but it's good, clean effluent. So in the drip fields, there are tubes that are, let's see, I'll not get to that just yet. Right here, you can see the drip dispersal layout. The zones are controlled or monitored by telemetry at the control panel in the control room. The land application area requires soil mapping. The land application flow rate, there's a flow rate, and we have to consider the soils, their ability to accept that. Some soils can take a higher flow rate than others. I'll just make a simple statement on that. We use bioline drip lines with drip emitters, and those are spaced. The drip emitters, every 2 feet there's a emitter, and it allows a 0.61 gallons per hour, I believe it is, a flow rate of that. So it's not flooding out of there. It's just a slow drip. The state requires testing as effluent leaves the property, but it's easier to test at the filter building rather than catching water through soil. You don't know where it's going to migrate through the soil. So we test it in the control room, and that's before it goes into the drip tubes. Out in the drip field, the tubes are buried 7 to 8 inches below the surface, and the schematic shows the final disposal tank, the control building with the UV light and ARCL filter and the telemetry, and then there's the drip field zones, and I'll talk about those now. There's the drip tube. It's about as big as my little finger, and you can see that drip emitter is a cutaway in that center top photo, and then to the left you see that little hole there. That's where the effluent drips out of the tube, and these drip tubes are shown to be 8 inches under the surface, and typically the drip tube is spaced at 2 foot, 4 foot, or 5 feet. There's no effect on the drip field size. We've used 5-foot spacings forever, and we haven't had an issue out of those unless somebody has done something to the soils to make them not usable, or after they were mapped, somebody did something to the soils, but we've not had any problems otherwise with a 5-foot spacing. The maximum length of a 1/2-inch drip tube, we try to keep that at 400 feet, plus or minus, because because of pressure losses if you go much farther. Typically, you should have a maximum of 16 to 18 drip tubes per zone. And this shows a subdivision with drip fields in there. And I will, let's see, I don't know if I included one. No, I didn't include one. I had a picture of it without those overlays, but what you see in green are the drip tubes themselves. We draw each one of those, and they're spaced at 5 feet apart. And then the gray lines you see there are the mapped soils from a soil scientist, and we determined where there are, good soils and soils that aren't usable, and where it goes through soils that aren't usable, what you have to do is put a tight line through there so you don't have any effluent. Pardon me? No dripping through there, yes. So we just put a tight line through those. And again, we fence those areas to keep people off of them from destroying it. And you wouldn't want them to get out there in a four-wheeler and start spinning their tires and dig up a drip tube.
How
The
do
land
you
application.
control
Pardon me?
how do you control the foliage that's growing out there?
I'll get to that in just a minute. Thank you for the question. So the land application, the drip dispersal, we have to look at the required or allowable loading rates on those soils. Soil scientist determines those, and TDEC and other authorities have their own acceptable loading rates, but detailed studies may dictate different than the maximum. Our preference is to set the maximum loading rate, even though some soils may allow a 0.25, as you see TDEC allowing a 0.25 gallons per day per square foot. We don't like to go that high. We use 0.2 gallons per day per square foot for well-drained soils.
I noticed you used consolidated utility there.
Pardon me?
I noticed that you listed
Yes.
consolidated utility there is at 0.15.
Yes. Is that okay? Okay. If you all would like, I can just pull my notes out of this notebook and hand them to somebody, and you all can keep them and make copies if you'd like. I also have on the thumb drive PDFs of this presentation, as well as PowerPoint if you like those.
Are we broadcasting this? We are, thank you.
Okay, so you're required to mow every so often the drip fields, and they usually produce pretty well, seeing as you're keeping water on it. Yeah, and water on it. So, but TDEC likes you to keep the clippings in the watershed area, for they're concerned about nitrogen. They don't want it shifting to a different watershed. They like to keep it. I don't know if that's still a concern or not, but you do have to periodically mow the fields. And I'd say there's some farmers that would like to have that. But anyway, anybody have any questions on the drip dispersal? You can see.
Back to one of your slides, you had 14 and a half. Next slide, up forward.
Oh, am I going the wrong direction?
Yeah. You had 14 and a half lots per acre.
Yes, sir. Okay, that's a good question. So, depending on the loading rate, this is a spreadsheet that when you change the loading rate, it tells you how many lots per acre that you can get. So with a 0.25 loading rate, you can get 14 and a half lots per acre with a 0.25, and that 0.25 is still not something you just say, I'm going to use 0.25. You have to have the soils that are capable of accepting the 0.25. But again, we change that to 0.2. We don't go as high as 0.25. CUD reduces it even further. That's a little much. I think if TDEC recognizes that you can use .25, then a .2 is very reasonable. So
And when it's lots per acre, how size, what kind of a lot size is that considered when you say
it
lot?
doesn't matter the size of the lot, because these drip fields are not on the lot. They're out in
Oh, the
it
number
looks like a
of-
pasture.
Yep.
Yes.
So on that question, one of the biggest, dilemmas, we have is in deciding, what to recommend to the planning commission in terms of, regulations, is there's an obvious difference between TDEC, which I guess one could classify as the minimum standard,
Yes, sir.
and then you have, obviously, what Consolidated Utility District is using as standards for the systems that they manage. What are your standards in that regard? You mentioned .2.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and that's your company's standard?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, we don't go more than .2. We don't go more than .2 gallons per day per square foot. And then you can also,
Let me interject some real quick. On the loading rate, you have well-drained soils, and that's what this is talking about. Well-drained soils, TDEC's gonna let you have a .25. We go with a .2. Moderately well-drained soils, we're going to go with a .1. It's a very linear equation. So if you have a bunch of moderately well-drained soils, you're going to need twice as much soils as you would if you had well-drained soils. So the standard really is .2 for well-drained soils and .1 for moderately well-drained soils. The other question that you had said earlier is, well, what size lot? It's really not what size lot, it's what size house. The 300 gallons a day, and I'm going to get a little personal with y'all for just a second. How many people live at your house? 2. 300 gallons a day of flow. You think you come anywhere close to that? Not anywhere close. Not any close. If you have a house that has, a couple of adults and maybe 4 children, you're probably only somewhere around 225 gallons a day of flow. Historically speaking, you're looking at about, on average, across the board, you're looking at 165 to 175 gallons a day of flow on average across a community. So the fact that you have the limit set at 300, you already have a bunch of safety factor built into there. And then when you have the loading rate at .25 that TDEC allows versus the .2 or the .1, depending on whether it's well-drained or moderately well-drained, you also have some more safety factor built into it.
thank you, Matt.
Yes, sir.
I should have covered that. And I would like to throw in that years ago I talked with TDEC about that 300 gallons per day per house. And I said, we use washing machines that use a lot less water today. We use shower heads that use a lot less water. We use toilets with a lot less gallons per flush. All of our appliances use less water than they used to. Do you all have updated your numbers? And those numbers were probably developed when I was a little kid. They're old numbers. They just haven't updated them. So when we use the 300 gallons per day, it's like Matt said, it's being very conservative with our system. We're not going to see that. Years ago, probably 20 years ago, I asked CUD, I said, let me know what this subdivision that we designed, let me know what the flows typically are. And I think it was 170 to 220 gallons per day. We looked at it for different subdivisions, and it made no sense as to the size of the house at the time that we were looking at. But it's way over conservative at 300 gallons per day per house. There's a lot of fluff in that number that is not going to be taken up even when you have a power outage. we don't use as much as we used to.
And you might be getting to this later in your proposal as far as the amount of land that needs to be available, soils, reserves.
Yes. Well, okay, so right there in the middle column there, required reserve area is 50%. And that's what most use is 50% reserve.
So CUD, I know in their proposed revisions of theirs, you're looking at possibly going to 100%.
I'm not sure why they're doing that, but
Okay.
they are even taking the conservative approach a lot farther.
Okay.
Yeah. I know they have a system where they have some failing drip fields, and it was because after the soil was mapped by a soil scientist, a contractor went in there and excavated the soils, took the soils and took them somewhere else, and didn't find out about it. And today, the areas where they put those drip fields in, it stays wet because of that. What they did, they went back. You can go on Google Earth. You can step back through time and look. Right now, it's year. You can look up from 25 to 24 to 23. You can go back several years, and they did that, and they saw that at some point before the subdivision was built, that the contractor had gone in there and taken the good soils out. And so they have some drip fields that are staying wet. So, but other than that, if you block out or use a tight line in the soils that are not approved for drip dispersal, and you properly map, you have a good soil scientist or map the soils appropriately, then you're not going to have any problems. You're not going to be replacing drip fields.
Could that possibly be put on the soil scientists on each individual case, where one particular tract of land have better soils and may need would pass with 25%, and another one may need 75%, and just use on recommendation of the soil scientist instead of just putting a blanket 50%.
Oh, I don't know that putting that on the soil scientist is the right thing to do. I think you all, as a policy, probably need to think about it real hard, and not just grab a number out of the sky, but give it some good thought before you adopt anything. And remember, TDEC says 50%, and probably a good thing to do is check around and see how much failure have you had in your drip fields? Do you see the need? I mean, you're going to have at least 50%. Because that's what TDEC says. But if you ask different utility companies that have drip fields, how much failure rate have you had in your drip field? Specify that in your drip field, and see. I mean, these systems have been out there, since the late '90s, and not having any problems. So I'd caution you to make it 100%. I wouldn't do 100%. So, because it's probably not going to get used. So, any other questions? Well, do you all want my notes? Sure. You can just run a copy of them and share them. And I don't have anything else, so I'll let Matt next to get up here.
Thank you.
Sir, you're welcome.
Thank you, Mark. Again, I'm Matt Nix with Edge Wastewater. I do want to clarify one thing I said earlier. I actually, after you asked me the question, I texted. Operations said that we're replacing the UV lights. 50% of them get replaced within 12 months to 15 months. and then the other 50% are getting replaced between 24 months and 36 months. So, and a lot of it depends on the usage. So, all right, so
How do you know when it's time to replace one?
they go out and look at it, and they're looking at the UV light itself, the bulb itself. Some of them we can clean off, some of them you can't. And we,
So you have periodic inspections.
oh yes, sir, we have
How
to.
often
We have
do you inspect?
twice a month, every 14 days. And then we have the rest of it set up on telemetry so that we can monitor the system remotely. So, appreciate Mark's comments about the system and how it works. For you guys at that point, you decide you're going to go with the system. Then the question becomes for y'all, what do you do with it? How do you manage it? How do you operate it? Who operates it? There's several different models out there, and I'm happy to talk about any of them, and I'll hit on all of them for you, or the bigger ones. You have the decentralized world where you guys just go, okay, we're just going to do decentralized plants, and we're going to let TDEC and TPUC figure it out. TPUC is the Tennessee Public Utilities Commission. So you guys say, well, we're not going to get involved. We'll let the developers come in. The developer will hire somebody like SCC to design it. They'll hire somebody like Eddie Price to build it, and then they'll get a private utility like us to operate it. It'll be set by TDEC. They'll review the plans. They'll approve them. They'll go do a construction inspection. TPUC, Tennessee Public Utilities Commission, will set the service territory through a certificate of convenience and necessity, and then they'll grant the territory. So your county government will say, we're not going to provide sewer. Local utility will say, well, we're not going to provide sewer, and then that allows us to be able to be the service provider. Now, that's kind of a hands-off approach. Another approach you could take is kind of what Williamson County's done. Williamson County sort of dictates everything through the Planning Commission. You've got some rules and regulations set through their planning and zoning folks that the engineers have to follow, utilities have to follow. Now, the private utility will still own and operate the plant, but it is governed a little bit more through the planning and zoning people. Then you have a whole nother model, which is done by a couple different utility districts where they have a utility district, so they have all the service territory, and then somebody comes in to them, developer comes in, hires SEC to do a design. We go to the board and say, this is what they want to have, this is what they want to do, this is how it's going to work. The board will grant approval. The board will then be the permittee for the state operating permit. So that utility district that you guys have set up will actually own the plants. We are at that point just a operations and maintenance provider. We operate the plants, but we're doing that on your behalf. And so again, it's kind of a preference issue is how you guys how y'all want to run it. You know, the other thing is if you get into the utility business and you want to own and operate them, or you want to own them, you now have to figure out how you're going to do billing. You got to figure out how you're going to do maintenance calls. That's one of the things that we do for a couple of folks where we are a master services provider for them. We do the building. We have the maintenance hotline. You call us. We send an operator out there. We send a technician out there to fix whatever, and then we report to the utility board on what has taken place.
Okay,
Yes,
on the one you said with the planning commission decides, who decides who the utility company is?
The developer.
The developer decides.
The developer can decide, and the planning commission can say no. They do have that right.
Okay, so that, so
Now
that is-
they have that right. I don't know they've ever exercised that right.
The planning commission could have a list of preferred installers, correct?
They could have a list. Well, they can have a list of preferred installers,
Right,
which would be like what Eddie does.
right.
And then you could have a list of, you could have a master services agreement with as many different private utilities as you wanted.
Right.
and then the developer would have to pick one of them.
Right.
Knowing that they had been done through you guys. Absolutely. Good point. So I think for you guys, it's just a matter of deciding how you want to get into this and how much control you want to have, how much involvement you want to have, and how you're going to make it work. And that's the key part to the utility, is making sure that it's going to function correctly. You're going to have the, like I said, maintenance hotline, you're going to have billing, you're going to have the standards out there, you're going to have a portal for the people who are paying the sewer bills. They can go in, they can ask for service tickets. You know, one of the questions you asked earlier, which is a great question, is what happens when this tank fills up? And it will eventually. Normally, the utility, whether it's us or you guys, would go pump that tank out. Now, the only time I ever ask a customer to pay for it is if they've done some sort of abuse to the tank. They invited 100 of their closest friends over on Thanksgiving. They fried up a bunch of turkeys and they dumped all the grease down the system. I'm probably going to ask them to pump that tank out at their cost. That's abuse of the system.
Matt, our function is rules and regulations. So what we'll do is, you know, we're going to, you know, take all our information and then make up our rules and regulations. And also let y'all know that Matt has sent me a copy of their rules and regulations, and I'll be sending them to y'all. And then our purpose is to do those rules and regulations and then recommend to the planning commission. And then at that point, I'd say that the planning commission decides the route, like what you mentioned, whether to do like, you know, Western County or, you know, the planning commission or whatever. So I think that's our function, and that's the way y'all understand it. So that's, and that's all this information is very important for us to do that. But I think it's also key what you've already supplied us, you know, so we can try to make a decision.
Yes, sir. We're happy to do it. Like I said, we're happy to help you guys anyway. Y'all got other information, or you have any other questions? You got my information. You've got Mark's information. Certainly reach out to us.
I got one more quick question.
Yes, sir.
So, your rules and regulations as compared to CUD, obviously, you at present, not including CUD's proposed revised, with the 50% additional space, your load percentage is slightly higher. But lower than TDEX.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other major distinguishing factors?
Sure, absolutely. CUD all right, so CUD uses a system called an EcoPod. They went to an EcoPod because they were having issues with the previous recirculating sand filters. The chambers were starting to collapse. The EcoPod kind of fits in that footprint, and so they're kind of doing that, but it's a lot of concrete. So the cost of it, from my opinion, is 2.5 times what a BioClear would cost. So you've got a cost consideration. Now, from
How much approximately a BioClear unit would be?
how big do you want it to be? Because it's going to change with the smaller. It's going to be
200 homes.
200 homes is going to be 60,000 gallons. You're looking at 60,000 times. I'm doing math on my phone right now.
Lynn, I think your point, where you're going, I'm assuming is, the cost of this eventually is going to get passed on to the buyer, to the home buyer, and
Yes, it
what's
is.
that gonna be?
You're exactly right. For 200 houses, you're probably looking somewhere around 1.9 million to probably about 2.3 million, in that range. That's for a BioClear system. The EcoPod system is going to be double that. Yeah. And EcoPod system's a good system. I'm not downplaying that at all. It's sort of like it's personal preference. It's what kind of truck do you drive?
So much more expensive.
Because of the concrete. You have these big concrete chambers, and they spend so much money on the concrete to get it in there. There also some stainless steel that's involved in it, as opposed to PVC. So it's just the cost goes through the roof.
Does it last significantly longer than?
We don't know. That we don't know because EcoPods are just now getting put in the ground. So we have no idea. The beauty of the BioClear is when I was a kid, there were these sugar cones. Had a flat bottom that came up, they kind of went out like that, had an ice cream one on top. That's kind of what a BioClear looks like. The beauty of the BioClear is you can pop the top, pull the top off, you can take all the guts out of it, put all new guts in it, fire it back up. It's about a day and a half process. That is not true of the old recirculating sand filter, and I don't think it's true about how the EcoPod system would get repaired. The other beauty of the BioClear is if I have a 60,000 gallon system, I'm going to have multiple BioClears. So if I have an issue with one of the BioClears, I have redundancy so I can shut that one offline, send everything else to the other one, work on that one, getting that one back up line, and then put them back on. If you just have one large system, if something goes wrong with it, you got some issues.
I got a question. As a servicer, are you bonded?
Yes, sir, we sure are. Bonded through TPUC.
How much?
TPUC maximum bonds $300,000
For how long?
every year. Yes, sir.
For the duration of the system that you're servicing?
Duration of the company, actually, I guess. Our system, yeah. Either way, it's a $300,000 bond every year.
And that's not based on the size of the system that you're overseeing then?
Yes and no. TPUC's requirement is a $20,000 bond per system until you get to a maximum of $300,000. And then it's just a $300,000 bond. So once you get past 15 systems, it's just $300,000 bond a year.
Does anybody require additional bond on top of that?
Only bond that ever is required is a bond, a performance bond on the developer for building the system so that the county or whoever doesn't end up with a development that can't be utilized.
That would be a short-term bond then?
Yes, sir. That'd be.
So we could set a standard requiring an additional bond here if we so desired
Absolutely, you could.
for a longer period of time.
Yes, sir. Yeah. You guys, y'all sort of got free reign here.
What do you do with the insides of that BioClear when you gut it to put in a new one? What do you do with what you pull out?
Well, we'll take all the biologics off of it. We'll wash all the biologics back into the system, and then the rest of it's going to go out as just regular municipal waste. It's just basically the guts are a. All right, I'm gonna go geek on you here for just a second. The BioClear is filled with these little modules, and it's all about surface area and retention. And so they're these, you can just suck them out, put all brand new ones back in it. And so that, once you get those cleaned off, they are just like little plastic discs. So once you get them cleaned off, they're just plastic discs that can go to the landfill.
typically would the, somebody like us or maybe the planning commission, they wouldn't be the decider to do an eco pod or what was your system?
Or the BioClear?
BioClear? Would that be a regulation?
I mean, you can make it a regulation. Like I said, you guys got free reign right now
Yeah.
to decide what you're going to recommend. Personally, I wouldn't, because if you set the regulation and you say, okay, we're only going to do these systems, well, what if there's a better system that gets developed down the road?
What-
What
I
I
mean,
would do is I would set what the limits you want are, what the permit limits. TDEC's already set
Or
the permit
minimum anyway.
the minimums. And like TDEC's limit for BOD and suspended solids are 40 and 45. Okay, that's the minimum. Has to meet that to meet the permit limit. The BioClears, they're getting them down into the teens. So, you know, you're already well ahead of what that TDEC minimum limit is. But again, I'd be hesitant to say these are the only systems I'm going to accept, because we all know things are developing so fast right now. I mean, it's just things are just turning over so quick. 3 or 4 years from now, there may be a much better system out there that's less expensive. And I would go based on.
Well, we're working on turn the water into gaseous form. It's not have to have the fields the way they are now.
So it's,
Me and
it's like
Dr. Buchanan at the University of Tennessee. I don't know where you know Dr. Buchanan.
I know John well. It's like the Dahmermuth system used to be for hazardous waste. Yeah, where they were cooking it. Yeah, absolutely.
Can I say something?
Sure.
So, I recently wrote regulations for City of Spring Hill. They're doing decentralized systems, and we sent them to TDEC to be approved, and they sent it back because we had gotten specific about what they wanted to use, and TDEC said, we don't want to tie the engineer's hand in designing these systems. We want you to take that out and let the engineer decide what kind of system they're going to put in. Spring Hill being, having a utility themselves, they wanted to be able to say, well, we only want to use one particular system because we want to have parts that we can change out and don't want to have everything in the world as a possibility. So, but we had, as far as TDEC goes, we took that out of their regulations, out of Spring Hill's regulations, and wrote a side set of regulations that do not go to TDEC for approval. It's just the town of Spring Hill has said this is what we're going to make engineers design to.
There's a natural commodity out there now that's a waste product that we're experimenting with, that when the water runs through it, it creates heat, and the heat steams it off into a gaseous form. And we've been working on it about 2 years now, and it seems to be working pretty good.
But typically we would set a minimum, and then if the developer wanted to use EcoPod, that's up to him.
Mm-hmm.
So that's basically.
Yes, you're going to set a performance.
I mean, it'd be maybe a more exclusive, it'd be a higher dollar, subdivision, so that's part of their cost. So
absolutely.
then they could use it as a selling point or not. If it may be, waste of money, but they can decide to do that or not.
Well, like I said, a lot of it goes back to personal preference. Here's the minimum standard. How do I get to that minimum standard? I mean, it's a lot like the truck that you drive. I mean, you can drive a Chevy, you can drive a Ford, you can drive one of the EVs if you want. It's how much money you want to spend? They're both going to get you from point A to point B. Well,
Okay,
EV
I think
might.
we're good on this. Then Eddie may wants to get about ready for.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Thank
Yeah,
y'all.
yeah,
Appreciate it.
Very informative. Very good.
Hello. I apologize for my voice. This weather's kind of got me a little, with losing my voice a little bit, but I'll try to get through this. My name is Eddie Price. I am a step system installer. I've been installing step systems full-time since 2021. That is when I left CUD. I was an inspector with CUD for 13 and a half years. I worked under Jason Laxon and Roger Goodson before I left to do this full-time. So you've asked me here today to kind of answer questions on the installation process. I really, Mr. Lee and Mr. Nix have done a good job of explaining the overall layout of the system. I really don't know, I don't want to bore you. We could be here for days if I walked you through the whole system on how it's installed. I have given each one of you a copy of of an actual state-approved plan that we are actually working on right now. It's Pleasant Creek subdivision in Thompson Station. We are bidding some in Spring Hill, as he alluded to. There's been a moratorium on their gravity sewer, so everything up there will be alternative step systems. So that's we're gonna be bidding a lot of those. If you look on the front cover of those sheets real quick, just want to point out something to you. There are stamps on there. One stamp is the signature of the SEC, the engineer, where he has signed off on this design. The next one is the state TDEX approval of the drawings, the plans. And then the third one is either the town or the utilities approval of these systems. We cannot start any construction on this system until we have approval by all entities. And so I wanted to point that out. Once again, this is a scaled down version. Ours are obviously bigger plans because people like me that can't see very well need them to be a little bigger. So we blow them up to help us. But if you will look through them, you will see that it shows the drip line design, the drip layout. The first sheet, or the second sheet there that you were looking at is the overall design of the whole subdivision. That kind of gives you a general layout of where everything is in relation to where the filters are, where the houses are, the whole layout. This system is a little bit complicated because the drip line are split up into 3 different areas, and there's a terrain area, a terrain difference on these as well. So we've kind of bring all these together, with these topography issues in mind. But what we will do is we will go out after we are awarded the job. We usually have a pre-con, a construction meeting with the utilities, whether it is a city utility or a private utility like Mr. Nix, and they will give us the go-ahead to proceed. And then from that point, we will start ordering materials. There is a pretty good lead time on these materials. The BioClears usually take around 3 to 4 months once we order them and pay the deposit for them to be built and delivered. So we have to take that into consideration. Some developers have even gone, before we get state-approved plans, they have actually ordered these BioClears ahead of time. We don't encourage that, but some do, trying to beat that lead time. Sir?
Is this a BioClear?
Yes, sir. Those are BioClear units. Those are 7 BioClear units, and you will see in one page where it'll blow up the actual treatment plant unit. Right there, there's one right there in the top. That shows, the BioClears, the Xerxes tanks, the equalization tanks, the research tanks, all. Let me step out. Yeah, this is a more detailed blow-up of it. So that shows, and I know these people online can't hear me, but these are primary tanks. These are the primary tanks that actually is going to be your storage tanks, which go into the equalization tank. And the purpose of the equalization tank is they pump that into the splitter to feed each of the BioClear equally, to get a more steady dosing instead of it just hitting the system all at once. So that's kind of the whole treatment plant area that Mr. Lee was talking about. These are BioClear units, these circles. And these are Xerxes tanks that he was talking to as well. I have pictures that I want to pull up, and I can kind of show you some pictures as we were installing. There's only one dose tank in this that's going to be feeding all 3 units, and the UV building, which is the control building he was referring to as well. as you can see, if you flip through, I mean, it gives you detailed, specifications of how to install these. There's even a page in there that tells us how far apart they want the drip line, that kind of stuff. There's a page that you're looking at that shows details on just pumps, silt fence, fencing, all that kind of stuff. Everything, pretty much they tell us exactly how to install this system. And that is a picture you're looking at of the control building, the inside he alluded to a while ago. That is actually what you're seeing on the screen right now. This is a facility in Lebanon. This is Dillon Point, and it is feeding a subdivision probably around 200 houses that you were alluding to. This system, as you can see, that's the control building. The bioclears are in the back. We gravel everything. We don't leave any dirt or vegetation around the tanks. It's just a maintenance nightmare. We've kind of gotten used to the CUD way of doing things. Coming from CUD background, whether we're working for CUD or not, we gravel everything and try to make everything look neat and tidy. It's
Do you
just,
put textile down?
yes, sir. We put the weed barrier and everything, yes, sir. And then we seed and straw everything. The fields behind that is where the drip line are. They actually wrap all the way around this facility. That's a bigger layout. You see the bioclears in the back, and then the control building there as well. One thing that I would encourage you guys to keep in mind, and this is a cost on the developer, but I would encourage you to require the chain link fence around the area, because you know as well as I do, there's going to be children living in these 200 houses. And if I would have been living there, I would have been trying to get in that building or in the tanks or anything. That chain link fence is a 6-foot high fence with barbed wire at the top. It just keeps anybody from messing with that system. There's a blade switch cutoff that kills the power right there on the side of the building. All they got to do is flip that switch and the whole system is dead. So it's just, preventive, just keep anything from happening, trying to protect the system. This right here is kind of the part of the construction process. This had 2 bioclears, so there is a splitter involved. When the system comes in, it comes into the main tank, which is the research tank. In this case, the EQ tank was in front of the research tank. That's a design issue that you'd have to refer to the engineer on that. But anyway, it goes through the holding tanks into the splitter. That splitter will allow the same amount of liquid to each bioclear, and making sure that it gets equally dosed at the same. So one bioclear is not outworking the other, is what that's for. This right here was the Uncle Nearest out on 231. These were 4 bioclears. I wanted you to see this because a while ago, all you saw was the top 2 or 3 feet of these bioclears, because that's all you see, and that's good. But these right here are 22 feet deep. And so there's blasting involved in pretty much all of these systems. So we have to blast these holes Rutherford County, Bedford County, you're not going to dig a hole 22 feet deep in this area. So normally, and in this case, water was kind of an issue. So we actually pulled the tanks up out of the ground a little higher, and I will show you kind of what we did. Yes, sir, groundwater, I'm sorry. This was how the splitter hooks up to these units. Those 4 units actually worked in series in 2 pairs. There was one bioclear that was higher than the next, and they worked in series down to the dose tank. And I will kind of work this. That's for a reason, and then once again, that is an engineering reason. I don't dictate that. This right here is the massive, it's a 25,000 gallon concrete tank that they used to catch as a holding tank that was pumped into the EQ tank that pumped into the splitter down to the bioclears. It's kind of like he said, it's not a complicated system. It's just pretty massive if there's a lot to it. This is a commercial application and not a residential, but we are actually in the process of bidding one in Spring Hill that's going to have almost 800 houses. And so it's a massive system. And I will say that learning from technology, SEC is actually drawing the plans for these They are starting, this will be the first one that we will have ever done this on, but they are using drawdown drains and curtain drains around the drip line to make sure that they keep all the excess water away from the zone area so that the dirt is only handling what's coming from the plant. So they're learning as they go. So it's technology is really catching up.
If we had no rules and regulations, how did that get approved in Bedford County?
Sir, I'm sorry.
If we had no rules or regulations, how did that get approved in Bedford County?
It's a commercial application. I believe that falls under TDEC, but I'm not sure. That's a question for somebody that knows. I don't know, sir. But as you can see here, that small concrete tank is the dose tank he was referring to. Once it makes it through all the tanks and the bioclears, it will make it down to the dose tank, which will end up pumping the water, the effluent out to the drip line and dosing it. That's another picture. This is the dose tank, the bioclears hooked up to the dose tank. We use mechanical joint fittings in this instance to make sure it's more durable. This right here, these pictures are not in order, and I apologize for that. This is actually Greystone. The picture that Mr. Lee showed you, the aerial view a while ago of the big system with the 6 tanks and the big gravel, all that, that's these right here. We actually installed this system, and they did an aerial view of that, and that was before the fencing and any of it was actually finished. This is back to Uncle Nearest. As you can see, we pulled the bioclears out of the ground some. Aqua Point does not really want you to go higher than 3 foot sticking out of the ground because of a maintenance issue. If you see those little green boxes on top, those actually have electrical connections. They need to be accessed. You see the big access panel on top. So for a maintenance standpoint, they don't want you to bring it out of the ground no more than 3 foot. And obviously in Bedford County or Rutherford County, you want to bring it up as high as possible to get out of the rock. So what we did is we used cross ties to kind of border these, and we built it up around, and I will show you this. We gravelled everything. Once again, we don't leave any dirt or grass. We gravel everything. Oh, well, that's a picture that's not real good, but that's kind of a long way picture of what it looks like now. That's a little bit more close up of the control building and the bioclears. Like I said, we box them in with the cross ties just to make it look better and more accessible for maintenance. Coming from CUD, more maintenance side of it, you know, and an installer side of it. I look out for the guys that have to maintain these things. I mean, I don't want to put anybody in a bind like that. So if it costs us a little more money, we're going to do what's right. So this is just more pictures, gravelled area. They did not make us fence in this area as well. The drip line, we're not fenced in out there at Uncle Nearest because it has UV filtration in the control building. So if you have UV light filtration in it, you don't have to fence in the drip line. I would encourage you to. Before we got done with this, they were riding horses out on the drip line area, so we had a big ordeal about that, trying to keep them off of it. So, but there's a little better picture of us boxing those in and graveling everything. We even put some steps there for maintenance purposes. So,
What's the life of those used cross ties?
the used cross ties, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm sure eventually they will rot out, so, but they'll be there for long enough that they can serve their purpose. The main thing was to keep in the buildup around it so that it's not sticking out of the ground 6 or 7 feet. If they do stick out more than that and you don't build up something like this, they require you to have like a catwalk around it, a metal catwalk.
Eddie, are we to assume that Consolidated is maintaining this?
Sir?
Is Consolidated the one maintaining
No,
this?
sir. Arrowhead Utilities is maintaining this. They're a private company like Mr. Nix. They do only commercial sites. They don't do residential sites. So he took this over when we got done and to his approval.
Eddie,
Sir,
When you have to get into the top of the tank to replace, how many feet of clearance do you need above that?
if you open that big round circle on top of the BioClear, the media is within arm's length, probably 18 inches.
Have you seen any of these where they actually put a roof over to protect it from UV, to keep from breaking down the tanks?
I mean, you could, because obviously fiberglass, PVC, anything like that is gonna break down with sunlight over time. But I know that, Aquapoint can probably attest, they have these in the ground for probably 30 years and haven't had a bit of trouble out of the hull. So, I don't know, you know, if you wanted it to last 100 years, then yes, you might do that, but, that would be a question for them. So. Any other questions for them? I hope, I mean, like I said, I really don't know exactly what to tell you other than show you kind of what we use to install these, some pictures that of us actually installing. I was trying to get to, here we go. This is the drip line that he was referring to. Off to the left where those boxes are sitting is where the Netafim drip line pipe are running. If you see the little black pipe that's coming out of the ground going down to the white PVC, that is black tubing that we use to connect the drip line to the actual manifolds. The manifolds that's closest to the ditch is our supply. We always put them first. That way it's more uniform. Everybody knows if they dig it up, this line is the supply manifold. This is a return manifold. The 3-inch pipe is the actual supply itself. That's coming from the building, coming out to the drip line. The little black, you can't really see it, but the first black pipe at the bottom, there's a black blob right there. That is a solenoid. What happens is when the building kicks on, water will go, effluent, yes sir, right there. Effluent will go through that 3-inch pipe to every zone, but the computer will tell it which zones to cut on. So you're only dosing certain areas of that field at a time. You're not dosing the complete field. So we basically construct all this. You have blow-offs and check valves to make sure nothing backs up into the back of that system. This system actually was what he was talking to a while ago about. The maximum length is 400 feet. These lines were less than 200 feet, so we looped them on the other end. So your supply came in right here, went down, came back, and then went into the return. So you have different configurations based on how your drip line lay out, if that makes sense. But it's a real simple system. You know, water comes on from the building, comes out to the system. Computer tells it which one to cut on, and it's all simple PVC piping. That's another picture of the same one in College Grove. This was the sports park complex in College Grove out toward Triune that we were doing. Everything's pretty simple. All this is GPS. We have our own GPS unit. So in a situation like this, where there's not an actual utility that comes out and GPSs themselves, we GPS our own systems, and we will give a thumb drive of the coordinates to whoever needs them, the private utility or whatever. Actually, in this case, we had SEC come out behind us and do the same thing to make it more fit. They wanted a more certified as-built, you might say. So, but there's not a lot to them other than plowing in the drip line, doing the manifolds, hooking all the pipe up, getting the piping back to the plant. All the wiring, you have we have a wiring pair that we send out, that we roll out to each, that cuts on it. You hook it up to each solenoid, that way the computer has the ability to talk to that solenoid. So there is wiring going to each solenoid, or each zone.
You've got valve boxes for each of those solenoids?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, we put boxes on everything. Usually they call for boxes, access points on solenoids, blow-offs, and air reliefs. And we even go ahead and we put the boxes over, if we splice wiring throughout the field, we will put boxes on that. Just if we have trouble, it's a good access point instead of having to dig it up.
the major difference is probably what we discussed there, would be the Ego Pods or the other one. I mean, that's the difference.
The EcoPod, I will be honest with you, we have not as a company installed an EcoPod yet. There's only 2 in Rutherford County so far, and another installer has done them. One was for a repair for CUD itself at Thompson Farms, which is out in Las Casas. They replaced a sand filter with the EcoPod. And another one is Ashmore on 96, but those are the only 2 and I don't think Ashmore is even in service, but they're not, they're just now going in. So we have been so busy in Middle Tennessee, we haven't, and honestly, things have been a little slow in Rutherford County because of the approval process. Trying to get plans approved through CUD and TDEC. They have been there hasn't been nothing to really start on. So they are starting to flow right now. I know some developers are starting with the EcoPods, using them in some of CUD's area, but we've been out in Murfreesboro. We've done 2 of them with Farmhouse and Greystone. We've been in Lebanon. We're in Thompson Station, and we did College Grove. So all over Middle Tennessee has kind of still been going on, but Rutherford County's been a little slow, to be honest with you. So. This right here is Xerxes tank that he was talking about earlier. This was College Grove. This is actually a combination tank of the EQ tank and the research tank. I know that doesn't mean anything to you guys, but these are 2 tanks in one because this was a small system. This is covered up. Everything is gravelled. We don't want any dirt touching anything pretty much other than, you know, the gravel that we put around the system. We gravel up all the way to the bottom of all the piping. Some people kind of found out the hard way, backfilling with dirt. You don't want to do that because dirt settles and these pipes were snapping. So, excuse me, they were snapping off. So we gravel everything up under it, and actually we even gravel more because it's just cheap insurance.
What do you use, 1/2-inch chips?
Yes, sir. That or 3/4, 57s. Yeah. This right here was the installation of the actual BioClear for that College Grove. It was only one small unit. At the bottom where that cone is sitting on the ground, that's actually sitting on concrete. There has to be a 12-inch concrete base with rebar underneath these to ensure that there's no settling. The last thing you want is for this whole BioClear to settle. So they make us, if you don't, that right there was actually chiseled out in rock. So we basically poured the concrete in the rock as a form, but we'll normally form up a 12 by 12, 12 inches thick concrete with rebar to specifications on the plans. And we will put them down first and set the BioClears on top of it. There are chains that are chained down to the concrete with eye hooks to ensure that that concrete acts as a kind of an anchor, you might say. And then in this case, there was a lot of groundwater. So if you look at the bottom of the cone, the second little ring right there, we filled that up to the bottom of that ring. If there's any kind of groundwater, they advise you to add more concrete at the bottom just to make sure that thing stays in the ground. So the last thing you want is for that thing to be like a bob and pop out of the ground. This is just the pipe hookups, PVC from the EQ dose tank to the BioClear. There's going to the dose tank. It's if you see that pipe sticking up, these systems are always vented on the outside so that any gases can get out, and just make sure you don't have any issues with that. That's just, that right there is the research, a line going back to the research tank. The BioClear doing its job just like any filter, the sand filter, EcoPod, any of them, they're throwing water up on top and it leaches down through the filtration, and that's how you filter the water. And then that water goes out to the dose tank and then gets pumped to the drip line. Anything that doesn't make it out to the drip line gets pumped back to the research, and the filtration process starts all over again. So it's just extra filtering. Okay, this right here, the system that he showed you at Greystone of the aerial view, these were the tanks that we built. We did use the concrete tanks and not the Xerxes tanks. The 3 that are farthest away are 15,000 gallon tanks. They are the EQ tanks. These 3 up close are 25,000 research tanks. I wanted to show you this one. That kind of shows how these tanks are built with the forms up. The last one wasn't poured. and they are 8 to 10 inches thick, depending on in the rebar specification. These are the tanks at a finished product before we backfilled them, and that's back at College Grove. And I think that's all I had. So, any questions anybody have on anything? It's kind of a boring process. I mean, the best thing I could do instead of telling you is taking you out there and showing you a system. So, and I'd be happy to do that anytime you want. So, thank you, guys.
Thank you, Eddie.
Okay. You need anything else?
Anybody
please
have any
let me know.
questions on it? I want to thank Matt and Mark and Eddie for this. I appreciate y'all coming. I mean, that's helping us a lot. We're kind of getting towards the end of our, of our information part of it. I think, this is our I guess our fourth meeting that we've had, and then y'all been entertained these three meetings. We've had some fine programs, and this one is, I think is good, is better than most of them. But I think the next meeting we'll have, we're going to have to do some work. I don't know exactly the process. Maybe we needed I think I'm going to maybe try to get our planning, get Chris maybe involved now, and then maybe with the help, if y'all help us, probably with some helping us with their rules and writing them. And well, you've already supplied, what yours are, and I guess, and then we have consolidated, and then we have to decide what we want to do after that. So, do y'all have any ideas of what we may go, our next move is or just we need to meet and then maybe talk to Chris and maybe know the next process? What do y'all think?
I think we're seemingly been leaning toward, a set of regulations that mirror something along the CUD guidelines, or their guidelines are very similar, particularly on the reserve area as they're currently written. Some differentials on the loads, but they're not too far apart. They're at 0.20, they're at 0.15, TDEC's at 0.25, I think. So I think there's some room there. So I think we probably have a foundation to be able to recommend to the Planning Commission as far as, those regulations. I would like to see us, offer a session for public input. Let anybody, whether it's, citizen, somebody living in a neighborhood with one of these systems or not, builders, realtors, developers, whatever, let's let them come in and be heard, and then let's make a recommendation to the Planning Commission.
How many companies out there would help monitor or maintain these systems if Bedford County decides to allow them?
There are a number of private utilities like we are, probably to the tune of, you'd say probably 4, 5, 6 that are like that. So I mean, you could have 6 different companies that you could put on a master provider list that could do that, or you can narrow down based on qualifications and all that other stuff where you don't have half of that or whatever you wanted to do. Kind of up to you.
Now, does your company, will you agree to manage a system based on the Planning Commission's regulations, or will you only manage systems based on your regulations?
No, we do. Yeah, we would work with the planning unless there's something so extreme. I can't imagine y'all doing that. Yeah, we would work with the Planning Commission. Absolutely.
So you're in this, your company's in this for the long haul?
Yes, sir, we sure are. And once you get in the wastewater business, you're there forever.
I don't know what the correct answer to this is, but if you don't have any standards, I think people can come in and do it themselves in the state of Tennessee, and the county has no control, or do they have control over it?
Well, if the county didn't have any standards, so if you guys don't say any standards, then somebody could come in and they would have to meet the minimum requirement through TDEC, and they would have to meet the minimum requirement through TPUC, which probably answers your question about how did Nearest Green, were they able to do this, is they went through TPUC and they went through TDEC to get it approved. And normally what you'd ask is you would ask the local utility, whoever the water provider was, will you provide sewer service? And they said no. Then they went to the county government, asked the county mayor, will you provide service? And he said no. That opened up the territory for Nearest Green to be able to do that system.
I just think we need to come up with a framework of what standards, I mean, what are the boxes we need to check? You know, the soil, the flow rates, how it's gonna be managed. I mean, we just need an overall framework and then fill in what we think Bedford County, is good for Bedford County. And of course, we want public input, be sure that the public's in agreement with it.
On the public input, the only thing, I was thinking is that I'm not sure that we need to do it. I think we maybe can recommend and let the planning commission, deal with the public
Yeah,
input.
that's fine too, sure.
I think to
I
go
like
back
that
to
even
your-
better.
I think to go back to your point, the boxes are already there. They're already outlined in the TDEC regs. So you've got the boxes there. I think what you just got to decide is, yes, sir. Just be cautious with that. You want to be reasonable because one of the things some of the counties around you have done, one of the counties around you has done, is they've made stuff so unreasonable, the developers are just like, yeah, we can't afford to work there. And so I think that would be the only precautionary thing I would say is, have a rationale for what you come up with, and but the framework's already there. You just got to decide, do you want to live with 0.2, do you want to live with 0.15? The 300 gallons a day of flow, that's already set. So that one you're not going to be able to change.
Yeah. For me, it's getting the regulations strong enough to where you eliminate the probability of failures, but you don't want to get it too stringent that you run people off.
Well,
There's a balance in there.
Yeah, so
somewhere.
let's talk about the failures for just a second. TDEC came out with this report, and you guys have seen all the news reports and all the stuff that's happened with systems, and there are 350, 360 of these systems around the state of Tennessee. They said, well, half of them are failing. Now, you need to read the report. It's not what the report says. What the report says is you got 25% of the systems that have some administrative issues. They have had some permit violations because they didn't test when they were supposed to, or they had one bad test, or they didn't file some reports. Then you had a whole nother 25% of them that did have some problems. They had saturated soils, they had ponding, they had some runoff. Every one of those problems is correctable. Every one of those problems is correctable. So, but you had 50% of them that had these problems. Well, you had 50% of them that didn't have any problems at all. So what does that tell you? It tells you that, or it tells me, it's not the technology, it's not the concept that's the problem. The problem becomes when the systems aren't built right like Eddie builds them, or they didn't put the system where it was supposed to go. The land application area was supposed to be here, and they're like, well, that's too hard. We're going to move that land application over here. It won't hurt anything. Well, it does. Or they just don't operate them correctly.
That's where we have to have a county inspector on site when these are being built.
We inspect on site. We're on site. So if Eddie's building a site for me, we will have an inspector on site doing exactly what Eddie was talking about, looking at the piping, looking at the connections, because as the guy who's going to end up having to operate this thing, we need it done right. Because if not, it becomes a major headache for me.
I'm gonna ask you, you know, for maybe our next meeting, and I talked to Eddie too, if you can make us a list of maybe the decisions that we would need to make, whether to make it easier or you know, more restrictive than you, but maybe a list of things that we would need to decide.
Sure.
And then and I may ask Eddie if he has something that maybe that we may need to decide, because you know, we'll have two documents, you know, unless I just, you know, make pictures of both of them and send them to AI and say, you know, make me a set of rules or regulations, which that's probably possible. I don't know. Other than that, I'd like to make decisions just on the major things.
Okay.
And I need to know what they are.
Yeah. So
or we need to know what they are.
Is there a database of county to county standards that we have, that we know what counties and their standards are?
I don't know with the Marshall County.
No, ma'am, we don't. You know, we go into a new county, we have to go talk
Does
to
it
people and see if
exist?
there's
Is there a
even
way
a
to get
standard
it?
out there. And in some cases, there's a bunch of counties that don't have any standards at all. And so we go back. Well, we go back to what TDEC requirements are, but our requirements are more stringent than TDEC, and so. Yes, sir. Yeah. So to Mr. Gill, to your point, what I do is let me get with Mark over the course of the next week or so, and we'll come up with a list of things that are the important items. Yeah, these are sort of the things that y'all need to be thinking about. Here are sort of the boxes. These are the ones you can't change because these are set by TDEC. You can't. You can make them more stringent, but you can't make them less stringent.
That's what I think that would help us more than anything. And then, I don't know, I guess, with Eddie, I guess whatever these are, he's going to have to go by anyway. So I don't know, unless you can come up with something, you know.
Well, I'm happy to get Eddie involved in this too.
Yeah.
And three of us can come up with something.
If you would, and then after that, you know, we can make these decisions, and then with that, you know, with the information we have, with the rules and the regulations that's been presented, I think we'd be able to get a document up, you know, within. We can make a recommendation and then decide how we're gonna build it, but I think we'd be able to, within a couple of months, be able to present it to the planning commission, and then let them have the public hearing. This is what we've recommended, and then let Chris go over with the planning commission, and then we'll be done.
Okay.
Matt, say we decided to go with your company to help maintain these systems in the county, who would be responsible for paying your contract?
So if you hired us to do it, and I would say, okay, you don't want to be in the billing business, right? So we would do all the billing, and so we'd bill all the customers, and then our fee comes out of the payments that are received from the people who are paying the sewer bills.
So it would be passed back to the homeowners, basically.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah.
What's an average bill look like?
Average bill is about $55 a month.
So the county won't have any money involved with this?
Doesn't have to, no,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah.
Doesn't have to.
Now, the county can make an exclusive contract with somebody like y'all, or consolidated.
They could, yes, sir.
Isn't that what Rutherford County did, basically?
Yeah, they gave all that service territory to CUD, yes, sir. Yeah.
So it can be exclusive, you know, with them, or not.
Or not. Or you can do multiples. Or to the other thing is you could say, well, we don't want you billing. You don't want us billing. We're going to take the billing and we're going to make the water utility district do the sewer billing. And then the water utility district would basically pay us. Yes, sir. Yeah, you can do, and I mean, there's checks and balances in there that you can look at just to, you know, be on the safe side.
That wouldn't be
The-
part of the rules and regulations, what I
No,
was
sir.
mentioning. That'd
No,
just be
sir.
a
Yeah,
county
all-
thing after.
Yes, sir. All you're doing is trying to set what the performance standard is. What people have to meet if they want to do a decentralized plant in Bedford County, you've got to meet this standard. That's what you guys are trying to set. Sure, yeah, we have, as part of that sewer bill, we have to pull out an escrow. That escrow account is set over into a separate account that can't be utilized for anything other than capital improvements later down the road. Most of these systems, according to Tennessee Public Utilities Commission, have a 26-year lifespan. And so our escrow is set up so that we can do major repairs at the end of the 26 years. And so if you're going to do that, you're going to get into the utility business, make sure you build an escrow account into it. Yes, sir, they do. Mm-hmm.
Catastrophic failure.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Anything else? Again, thank y'all for coming. I sure appreciate it. So I think it's a
Thank
major
y'all.
step.
Thank y'all very much. Appreciate it.
And if, beyond that, do I hear a motion to adjourn? Yeah, before we make a vote on that, our next meeting will be April the 9th. Second Thursday of, y'all have a deadline to get to help us. So I'll be talking to you, next week and we'll try to get together.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
You have a second? All those in favor?